Welcome to another episode of That's My Dad. I'm Scott Hilton here with Brian Mintz. A lot of people know Brian, the old high school football coach. He's now working with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and played high school ball across town against me, kind of. He's a little bit, maybe a year or two older than me. So Brian's a good guy. A lot of people know Brian. His wife, Kim, and he have been married 36 years, we think. Got 4 kids. So thanks for being here, Brian.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here. And, yes, we've been married 36 years, and it's been 36 good years, at least on my end. She might say differently. But
So let's just jump right into this thing. We were talking before we came on about your granddads and how generational blessings get passed down. You're the recipient of some good generational blessings. Tell us what you know about your granddad, and then we'll move into your dad as well.
Well, both of my granddads, one on my mom's side, Lamar Pruitt, was a Methodist minister, bivocational. He worked at Bynum at the Army Depot and, farmed. I remember the tractor, and I remember the vegetables and shelling peas sitting on the front porch and all those kind of things growing up. And I can remember going into the attic and seeing it was like walking into a canned vegetable grocery store, where they had put everything up and stuff right after, the beginning of the fall when you'd first walk up there. It was amazing the work that my grandmother did, and then my granddad working, and I think that's the big thing is I remember about, and my other grandfather was Fred Mintz and Frederick Mintz, and he was a farmer, and same thing. That's all I ever remember him being, and I remember when I was very young. They didn't even have running water inside their house. Still had an outhouse and that kind of thing. So I got to see a lot of that, and then very fortunate, not too long ago, my dad had a bout with cancer, and I was sitting with him during a treatment, and just got to hear him share some stories of when he was young, and as we sit there, I just kind of took that opportunity to kind of ask him some questions, and him talking about hitching up the mule to go to church and stuff like that when he was young. And so all those things are not that far removed from us, although we think that, in our society today of cars and now electric cars and all this kind of thing, that's just really ancient history, but it's not, Right. And seeing my grandfathers and then my father, growing up in that, and not people of wealth, but I can remember, swimming in the creek and things like that when I were little, and we would go to my grandfather's house and brim fishing on the back in a little lake with a pole, and this past week, I've just had on my mind the significance of insignificance, and how just the little moments in daily life turn out to be the greatest gifts that we have, and remembering it, people, and it's not the trip to Disney World or on a trip to Paris or something like that. It's going to stand out in people's mind. It's the daily, just the being there, the power of presence, being in someone else's presence. And I think those are the things that stick out generationally about my grandparents and my father. My father worked at the steel plant from the time I was very little, and thinking about that, I don't think he ever missed one of my games.
Really?
And he was fortunate enough that there was men around him that would he rotated shifts, working first shift, second, third, and the men around him oftentimes would swap shifts with him so that he could make it to a football game.
And you're
that was
58, 59 years old.
I'm 59. I'll be 60 here in about 22 days, I think. So,
but you remember. My point is, after all these years, you remember that your dad was just there.
Yeah,
he was just there. It sounds like you didn't have to do anything spectacular, but just be there for you.
No, and I don't think that's the thing of being a dad. I think being a dad is a lot of times just being there and involved in daily activities. And again, we weren't wealthy we were just, middle class kids, and really and truly no one had a lot necessarily. There wasn't a lot to be had, to be honest with you, of these gadgets and gizmos and fancy cars. And, growing up when we did, it was cooler to have an older car that you kind of fixed up,
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I remember about my dad is him getting me a car, and I think he paid $500 for it, and we worked on it, and those little things, people always joke about, hey, you can't hurt my feelings because I held my flashlight from my dad, and that's true. I can remember he might get a little ill with me, but I can remember us going to junkyards together and hunting out parts and pulling this and that and stuff to work on that car. And those are things that stand out. I just remember a lot of things like that that Dad would fix or repair or whatever, so that I would have something. You know?
So it was the simple things in life.
Yeah,
just being
absolutely.
there, what you're doing. And so many of the guys we've interviewed have said that same thing. I always ask, is there something in particular, or is there a story? And a lot of guys have a story, but a lot of them say, my dad was just there.
Yeah,
he was there for me. And then they begin to think of those moments. Of how that impacted them.
And the other thing is me playing quarterback, and God gave me a lot of ability to, first of all, I guess I had a very, and I'm not saying this in bragging, but, God gave me a great understanding of the game of football, but he also gave me an arm, and I played football and played quarterback and pitched in baseball and stuff. But I'm saying this to say that when I was young, I remember my dad getting in the backyard and just throwing and catching with me. And that's pretty powerful. And I say that, too, because I didn't always do that with my boys. Because, when you work all day and you practice football and you've thrown the ball with everyone else's kids, you come home at 6:30 and you want to sit down and, the kids want to play still and stuff, and I didn't always do that, and I wish I would have more.
What do you think your dad did right? What are some of the things he did right?
Well, I think, first of all, just taking care of us and being a good husband. I think that's often overlooked. And I think our society is paying a price for that today because of the lack of fathers in our society. And, it's not just in our society, it's in our churches too.
Mm-hmm.
The divorce rate is just as high in the church as it is in society.
Yeah.
And, that's scary. But I think a lot of us fail to recognize that, when we go to that, before that altar, and we take those vows to a little girl, the vow is to God. It's not to the girl, and that's strong. And when you realize that, you can't let God down, and you can be in love with that girl, but you also got to be in love with God.
Did you ever have any doubt that your mom and dad would be together?
No, I never did, and with that is great security.
How has your dad influenced you as a father, and how your approach to fathering your own kids?
Well, I think that if I've done something well, it's probably loving my wife and giving the kids a home of security of knowing that Dad's not walking out. And I can't overemphasize how important I think that is that, you know, and I just can't imagine. I see I see men walk away from their families, and that's blows my mind, really. The thing that I wish I would have done better, and you didn't ask that, but the thing that I would say that I wish I would have done better is, you know, when I was younger, I was, and the kids were small. Of course, you know, as they were teenagers and stuff, that was more in my wheelhouse a little bit. But at the same time, when they were small, I didn't enjoy that as much because I was busy trying to win all those football games. You know, like that was going to really make a difference, you know. And like I said, you know, I should have spent more time playing with my own kids than worrying about playing with somebody else's sometimes, I think.
What kind of advice would you have for dads?
Be dad, I think, and just try to love your kids and give them discipline, have expectations for them, and not let them just have run of the house and the neighborhood and the county and everything else. But I think to hold their children more accountable. Now, I'm going to share something because I had this on my mind thinking of dads and families and stuff. It's one of the teams that I coached. This has been several years ago, but hey, I had two football players on my team that saw their dads kill their moms. Not one, but two. I had two guys when they were children saw their dads kill their moms. Now, you don't think that has an effect on a kid, you know? And, man, I just – that's something that's really stuck with me through the years after that, you know?
And how do you help a kid overcome that? That's the trauma involved in that is just enormous.
Well, and that's the thing is we don't always know what these kids are going home to. You know, I grew up in a Leave It to Beaver home and stuff, just like on so many of those old shows, you know, the family and stuff. And man, I had an awesome home life and stuff. But as a coach, and I don't know where this came from really, God gave me a heart for those kids that didn't have that, and just to try to love on them and give them some discipline and have some expectations for them. And you know, I think that everyone wants to know, especially young men, that someone is watching them and someone has an expectation for them and is willing to hold them accountable to that vision. And once they understand that, man, they're going to bust their butt to try to impress or to meet the standard that they're being held to.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I attended so many ball games as the director at Eagle Rock, not because my kids were great athletes. I had some, but most of them were not tremendously gifted. But they wanted to look in those stands and see that somebody was there for them. And when I couldn't be there, I made arrangements for somebody else to be there. Yeah, it's just so important for them to know that there's somebody that cares about them.
Usually, I think mom and dad had reserved seats, or at least they kind of like at church. They always sat in the same place if they didn't. So I knew where they were at the football games. But, you know, when I was in college, you know, when I'd come out onto the field, that was usually one of the things I would always look, and I'd find my mom and dad.
You were a grown man.
Stands.
Where did you play college ball?
I was at Jacksonville State.
Okay.
Played quarterback at Jacksonville State.
So you're the quarterback at a Division I school looking in the stands.
Well, we were Division II at the time, but yes, most definitely.
Yeah, looking in the stands to try to find your parents. You never outgrow that, do you?
No, you don't.
Do you still crave having your dad say he's proud of you?
Oh, absolutely. absolutely. And just to kind of give you an example of that is that, you know, my dad always took pride in doing a lot of things himself, as I said earlier, you know. So last night I actually spoke to Mom, but I told her, you know, tell Dad, I got that window in, you know.
Really? Yeah.
I got that window in, because he'd have been like, hey, that's a good job, you know. So.
Yeah, so deep inside, here we are, old men now.
Yeah.
And we're still little boys deep in our heart, aren't
Oh,
we?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think we ever outgrow wanting our dad's approval.
No, you don't.
And if it's that strong in a guy our age, imagine how strong it is to a kid. I think they don't realize it as much as we do, but it's just as strong. Let's talk a little bit about FCA. Tell me what you do with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Well, to go back a little bit, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, you know, I first heard of that when I was in about the 9th grade from one of our coaches. And then when I got to college, and I will say this right here, although I grew up in a Christian home, and like I said earlier, my grandfather was a minister, it was when a coach presented the gospel that I felt the tug on my heart. That made a huge difference, and I can't really tell you why. Because, like I said, I had plenty of godly examples around me every day. But that was the part that when I came, I guess that pointed out to me that, hey, I had to be accountable for my life before God myself. And then when I got to college, you know, having that weekly huddle, which is what we call a small group, having that weekly huddle was so important. You know, I loved that, and that gave you something to participate during the week, to look forward to, and share your faith. You know, go and hear a message of inspiration and hope from the gospel, and so I have a strong background in FCA, and then as a coach, I always had a huddle, and we had meetings and stuff, and I try to be a godly influence through that, using that with my team. And, man, I've just seen FCA grow, and I'm looking at some different areas around us and stuff, and as I begin to think about departing football, this is just something that God laid on my heart that I felt like that I needed to be doing. And in some ways, some days, you know, I go home and I don't feel like I'm that vital of a cog, but yet at the same time, other days I feel like this is the most important thing that I've ever done. Mm-hmm. So
you spend your days encouraging coaches and starting huddles and teaching and –
I do, and I go to practices because, you know, whenever I'm in front of kids and have an opportunity to just share with them a little bit about Christ, or whether it's sharing a football experience or whatever it is, I want them to know that I'm not just the speaker that shows up. You know, I'm invested a little bit, and so I try to get by each of the schools to a practice at least every other week or so, you know, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot.
15 schools or so.
Yeah, I mean, and so by the time you make the rounds, and then during the winter, you know, spring is the hardest because everything is a boy and a girl sport, and and there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 teams going in the spring at each school. Yeah, you know, plus, so that makes 10 or 12 time you count the, you know, both the male and the female teams. So
sounds like you're a good fit for it. You're enjoying it.
Well, I am. And that's what I always tell people is that I love it, and I get to spend my time with coaches and athletes and just talk about Jesus a little bit. So that's a pretty good day when I go home. You know, yeah. I've spent it with coaches and athletes and got to share Jesus.
Good deal. Tell me about your kids.
Well, my oldest son is an accountant, and he's in Nashville right now. and my middle son is in Texas. He works for Texas A&M University. I think he is, as I understand it, he is helping immigrant students and getting registered and anything that they need. Okay. So he's doing that. And then my youngest son, John Mark, is currently coaching at he's teaching at Rainbow Middle School and coaching at Glencoe High School, coaching football. And then my daughter, Maylee, who we adopted from China, she is at Rainbow Middle School. So I've got 2 kids still at Rainbow Middle School. So the guys, man, they've all turned out. I'm really proud of all of them. They're all very very different. What's really crazy though is that my daughter is. I didn't foresee that coming when I was a young man. You know that I was going to have a daughter from China, but she's in charge of the house. You know, I mean, she's the princess, and but what's so funny is about that is that you see God in that, because she is a perfect match for our family. Her sense of humor, her just her demeanor, everything about her. You, other than appearance, you know, you would think she was one of our biological children, and you know that God is in that when you're in that.
I want to give you a chance to do something. We don't need to let our dads go without knowing we appreciate them. And oftentimes I've heard guys say, "Oh, I wish I had said something." I want to give you a chance to look into the camera over here and just address your dad. What do you want to say to your dad?
I don't know if I can do this or not, but I will say, Dad, just thank you for all the sacrifices that you made for me and my brother growing up. I know there was a lot of times that you and Mom probably wanted more or to do more, and you set so many things aside of your life personally to make a way for us. And thank you for all that. And I love you.
In closing, tell me the adoption story of your daughter.
My wife had always wanted a daughter, and we had reached a point where that wasn't going to happen. And so I just, came home one day and I said, I'd listened on the radio. I'd heard a guy talking about adoption and stuff, and we had already previously talked about that. I just came home and I told her, I said, "Hey, what do you think about this? Let's look at it." And she began looking into it and slowly began the process, and then more rapidly. So a lot in getting paperwork and all that together. That takes some time, about a year actually. So from the time we got our paperwork turned in China to the day that we got word from Maylee that we had a daughter that was waiting on us, that was about 6 months. 6 years. At the time when we first started, people were getting children in about a year, but it was nearly 6 years before we got a child. And I always go back to I guess it was the first time maybe I'd seen this story, but you've probably seen the little short stories, a couple of paragraphs of the man picking up starfish on the beach and throwing them back. And someone asked him, "Why are you doing that?" And It's not going to make any difference. There's millions of them. And he said, but to this one, it makes all the difference. And that was the way that I felt. And when I saw that, I just felt that that was God telling me that we needed to make that difference in a child's life. So I was willing to leave and go. My son was in his senior year. We were headed into the football playoffs, and we made the decision that it being his senior year and everything, that I should stay rather than go. So my wife and her mother went with her to China to get Maylee, and I stayed here. And funny story, we the last game of the season, we were playing at Collinsville, and I was at Raglan at the time. We were undefeated. They were undefeated. So it's a non-region game though. So, but we're both undefeated, and we're playing big game, cold, and so we play. And then she had given me the number of one of her friends as soon as the game was over with to message her, to call her, and then she was going to send an email to Kim so that she would know. So we did, and then so Kim gets the email and opens it while she's on the Great Wall. I mean, she is standing on the Great Wall when she hears that Raglan has defeated Collinsville. And so what was funny, though, was she told, and everybody on the trip, there was traveling with a group of people that were adopting. So all of those people were there, and they knew that I was coaching and so forth and stuff. So they all kind of cheered and stuff. And Kim said all of the Chinese people that were there on the Great Wall just immediately started cheering too and stuff. So
cheering for Raglan's win.
Raglan beating Collinsville on the Great Wall. So that's a great story. But
how has Maylee changed your life?
I think that I'm still not an excellent dad. I'm probably a better dad, a more loving dad, a more considerate dad. Man, I can't even fathom all the way she's changed my life. But it's been an awesome journey, and I love her. And a funny thing, I didn't think this, but people always, well, how do you love a child that's not your own? It's not just my child. It's the child that God chose for us, the one that He put in my charge, and that's a pretty awesome responsibility.
It is. We sneaked behind your back and got a little video clip from Maylee.
Okay.
I wanted to share that with you.
Hi, my name is Maylee Mintz, and my dad is Brian Mintz. My favorite thing about him is that he is kind and he loves Jesus. Thank you, Daddy, for letting Mommy go to get me in China. I love you. Bye.
And that is her. She is a joyful child, and she's great. She really is. So,
was it worth it?
Absolutely.
You'd do it again 1,000 times, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no doubt.
Awesome.
No doubt.
Well, thanks for what you do for kids and have done for years. Coach has had such an impact on me personally.
Yes.
And I've just have such a high regard for coaches, and thank you for impacting so many kids and for what you're doing now with FCA. Appreciate you coming in.
Well,
I think you're going to inspire somebody.
Thank you for the opportunity.
That'll conclude this episode of That's My Dad, where we're trying to help fathers become great dads, and we're trying to break cycles of generational fatherlessness. We'll see you next week.